So that's the measure of civilization. And if you look at, and there's a good reason for it, because writing can preserve information and hand information down to us, and it can produce narrative, because if we rely entirely on archaeology for something, to look at artifacts, they're always more ambiguous than if we have text. If we have text that we can read, that is talking to us, it tells us something definitely more than if we do not. And based on that, there are 4 great civilizational areas that are like offshoots or peninsulas of Eurasia, which could be defined as Europe, the Near East, India, or South Asia, because now we don't want to confuse the country of India with all of South Asia, so we call it South Asia to include Pakistan and Bangladesh, and China. Or the Far East area, the Far East bulge of the continent of Asia. And one might perhaps want to consider other places, but certainly these are great centers of civilizations that have existed. And the Near Eastern civilization has always existed in a certain antithesis to Europe that already perhaps the first salvo of which is fired at the Battle of Marathon in 490 BC, when the horrible Asian despotism of the Achaemenid Persian Empire was trying to conquer the poor little innocent Greece. And on down from there, we have a kind of conflictual relationship. So that area of rivalry between the 2 areas, that's something that has to be seen. And the Muslim civilization, of course, has its own standards and measures and principles and so forth. And there's a very great continuity that is usually perceived from one era of civilization to another, but to some extent the Muslim civilization in the Near East was viewed by the Muslims as a new foundation. And so consequently, it's also the case that another reason for the Arabian connection being emphasized is that the Muslims did not choose to often emphasize their connection to ancient classical civilizations, which included especially the Persian and the Jewish, and the Greek also, and the Indian too, actually, but rather emphasized that everything came out of Arabia itself. And that is a heavy burden for Arabia to bear, believe me. On this map, you see what I talked about before, which was although you see it somewhat darkly, you have to sort of straighten the map out and put it back into perspective, the map on pages 48, 49 here. But you see anyway marked there what is marked as Byzantine Empire and what is marked as Sasanian Empire. And those 2 had been engaged, as I said, in a knockdown, drag-out war. These other colors, the Ghassanids, the red is the Lakhmids, although I don't see the label on that, but it's supposed to be the Lakhmids. And then Kinda, which is the chartreuse one, and Yemen, the green one. This is an attempt by the editors of the book to show that important, significant kingdoms existed in Arabia. Actually, the Ghassanids, the Lakhmids, and Kinda were not kingdoms of any importance. They were temporary. The Ghassanids and Lakhmids were client states of the Byzantines and Sasanians, respectively, and Kinda was a very ephemeral, short-lived tribal confederacy that had little importance. Also, it omits Ethiopia. It doesn't give it a color, although you can see the town of Aksum, or the capital there, is marked in Tigray province near the border of Eritrea. Ethiopia, of course, was an organized kingdom also. And Yemen had become a province of the Sasanian Empire before Islam. So when the early Muslims conquered it, it was taken from the Sasanian Empire and in effect returned to Arab rule.